Hey, good Tuesday evening, everyone. State Representative Brad Halbrook, and welcome to another Tuesday night edition of the Illinois Freedom Caucus Roundtable. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we got an important topic to discuss tonight. It's really important. So again, we appreciate you tuning in. And as always, hopefully this will be some content that you can share and push out to your different friends and let them know how important this is to you. So with that, guys, let's just kind of get right into it. I would like to welcome Leader Chairman Miller and Director Mosley and Leader Chairman of the Senate Illinois Freedom Caucus is Senator Andrew Chesney. We got a couple special guests. And so why don't we just get into the slides there, Director Mosley? And so our guest today with us is Kirk Smith of the Illinois Christian Home Educators. And Kirk, you've brought a special guest also with you. And let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so Thursday was Cherry Pie Day in Springfield, homeschool lobby day. A lot of families there, a lot of kids, and so with that, let's go to Leader Chairman Miller for kind of a recap what happened on Thursday.
Well, it was great to see all the smiling faces there, celebrating freedom in education and encouraging the state legislators to stay out of our business. As a homeschool dad of 7, I understand that the fight for freedom on this issue never ends with these people. And one thing that we've discovered over time is especially the Democrat legislators need close adult supervision. So typically, if you show up, that they will leave us alone. If you stay home, they will continue to tyrannize us. I'm so grateful that 2,000 plus homeschool families came, and the pie was delicious. I think that I had more than my share.
Exactly. Thank you. And the Senate leader of the Illinois Freedom Caucus there, Andrew Chesney, how was it like on Thursday in the Senate chambers and the Senate offices?
Yeah, it was good energy. It's nice to see the folks every year when they come out. Clearly, this year is a little more unique because there's a toxic legislation that's being proposed. It always kind of sits heavy every time they come in because it's the only group that we see every year that pays for something they don't use and never complains, and all they want to do is be left alone. And so, they come down and they truly are givers. They get, but they also provide a very good service and a very good education to their children. And so I think it's nice to see them, but also it's encouraging to see, as Chris mentioned, the sheer numbers that came out this year. But the concern that families have, they want to be front and center, as they should, in making the decisions on how their children are educated. And what we're seeing now is that the teacher unions and these types of groups have not been performing well, and so now they are going to be attacking one of the last groups that has done a very, very good job historically, which is the homeschool communities. And so it was nice to see them come out, and we'll certainly support them in their upcoming fight for this legislation, against this legislation.
Yeah, exactly. And let's go to Leader Wilhauer, that is leading the charge against the tyrannical overreach down in literally the front row of the House Republican chambers, or the side of the chamber there. And so Leader Wilhauer, what was it like for you on Thursday? What did you experience? I know we were out in front of the Lincoln statue on the east side of the Capitol. What's your thoughts?
Hey, it's good to be here, and I just appreciate all the homeschool families and all the educational freedom folks showing up. Not only showing up on Thursday, but showing up with their witness slips and calling these legislators, making their voice heard. It's been pretty overwhelming. I think there was over 20,000 witness slips already filed against this legislation. So obviously the grassroots, the real people in the state of Illinois want nothing to do with this. And I commend you for that. And I'm going to be right there on the front row when this comes in committee. I've been on the Education Policy Committee for several years now. and I'm the minority spokesperson on K-12 appropriations. So this stuff is I'm right in on it. It's very important, and there's only one reason that this is happening, and this is power and control. If the Illinois Education Industrial Complex doesn't have power or control over something, they're going to fight. They're going to fight to the death to get it. And this homeschooling is the fastest growing form of education in the country, and there's a reason for that. The government schools are failing. So I appreciate you guys being here today, and most of all, I appreciate all the folks standing up and making their voice heard. It's not falling on deaf ears.
Exactly. Thank you. So let's go to Leader Miller, and Leader Chairman Miller, why don't you introduce our next guest, and then maybe kind of have them kick off about how this Cherry Pie Day this year compared to in the past. And then once we do that, then let's go into our next slide. So Leader Chairman Miller, if you want to introduce our guests and have them reflect on this Thursday.
Well, I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Kirk Smith. He's probably the most famous person almost in the 618 area down there. He is a true redneck, and you can tell that's verified by the name of his town. His hometown is Bone Gap. Now, you got to be an American original to come from the garden spot of America. But anyway, without delaying, I want to introduce my good friend, Kirk Smith. He's the president of the Illinois Christian Home Educators, doing a great job being a voice. A lot of times we feel like a voice for the voiceless, but he's not intimidated, and he's not afraid to stand up and speak his mind.
Well, thank you, Representative Miller. The scripture about bad company corrupts good habits has come through my mind as I'm thinking about our relationship right now. Hey, we did have a great time coming up to Springfield last Thursday. We had over 2,000 people. We usually have around 400. And so this HB 2827 is really, really concerning the people. And, understand this is a worldview battle of statism versus democracy. And the question that's going to beg to be answered is Illinois a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, or are we really a tyrannical government? That's what I see this with the numbers that are coming out. The witness slips, as mentioned, were over 22,000 already, probably be over 24, 25 by the time the bill is heard. And so the voices are being heard very, very clearly. The question is, what will the government do with that?
Exactly. And Kirk, why don't you introduce your special guest that you've got with us? It's been a leader with you. Just kind of do that and kind of give us a little background on Mr. Estrada.
I'd be glad to. I'll let him kind of share maybe 3 or 4 points why this bill is so bad. This is Will Estrada. He's from the Homeschool Legal Defense. He is our appointed attorney here in Illinois. I can't tell you how grateful we are for him for his insights. So, Will, why don't you share maybe 2 or 3 of the highlights of this bill, why it is so bad, please?
Well, thank you so much, Kirk. And elected officials, I got to meet you and hear you speak on the steps of the Capitol in front of the Lincoln statue. You guys just did a tremendous job. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for having Kirk and myself on. Kirk is doing an incredible job just getting the Illinois homeschoolers out there to make their voices heard. So I am a homeschool graduate. I'm a homeschool dad. So I saw firsthand the success that homeschooling has when it's left alone by the government. This bill, HB 2827, is just the wrong thing for 3 reasons. The first one is it puts a massive burden on the local school districts and on DCFS. What the bill requires is every single homeschooler by August 1st has to submit a homeschool declaration form to their local school district, and then the local school district sends all that paperwork to the regional offices of instruction, the intermediate service centers, or in the case of Chicago Public Schools, to the superintendent. There's bound to be loss of papers. There's bound to be loss of sensitive information. I believe there was just a story that came out in Illinois about a massive data breach of public school students. So now we'll be seeing homeschoolers lose this paperwork. So massive burden on the local school system. Anytime DCFS has a contact with a homeschool student, they'll need to then forward the information over to the local public school or the regional office of instruction. Again, a burden on DCFS. That's an unfunded mandate. Vulnerable children are going to fall through the cracks. Second of all, I hate how the bill criminalizes homeschool families. This is on pages 7 and 8 of the bill. If a family simply fails to file their annual homeschool declaration form, they have 10 days to rectify that. So if they're sick, if they're on vacation, if they're trying to figure out this new law, it doesn't matter. You immediately get hauled into truancy court. If you're convicted, that's 30 days in prison, $500 fine, criminal conviction on your record. Whenever there's a criminal conviction or jail time, DCFS gets involved. Children can be removed temporarily and placed in foster care. We're criminalizing loving families simply if they fail to file paperwork on time. I thought we're trying to reduce the number of people, particularly vulnerable communities, who are caught up in the criminal justice system. And the third one is the massive data collection on traditional brick and mortar private schools. This is near the end of the bill. All traditional brick and mortar private schools will now have to make sure every single person, even the janitors, have high school diplomas, that they register with ISBE, the Illinois State Board of Education, and that they transfer massive amounts of data on every single student and family and parent to ISBE. Again, history has shown us government databases are never good news.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong with giving more of your personal information to the government?
Nothing good will come of it.
Exactly.
It's actually been exciting to see the Catholic Conference has come out against the bill. The non-public school groups have come out. A lot of private schools are opposing the bill. We've heard that some in the Jewish school community are meeting with the sponsors to try and see if it can be amended or even if the bill will be opposed. So this has really shown that everyone in the non-public education space, whether home educators, traditional brick and mortar private schools, sectarian schools, they are all coming under the eye of the government. And look at what's tragically happened. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP scores that just came out, showed that tragically Illinois public schools, a third of eighth graders are not proficient, or I'm sorry, only a third of eighth graders are proficient. 2/3 are not proficient. Let's get our public schools in order before we start trying to regulate home educators and the private school community.
Yeah, exactly. And Leader Wilhauer, I know you've led the charge about proficiency and about outcomes and about spending when it comes into the Appropriations Committee. We've got some of these schools, they've got single-digit kids barely able to read and write and do math. It's just stunning. What's your thoughts? What's been the back and forth that you've seen recently in the last couple of weeks or 3 weeks with it is a record spend on public education. It is a record spend, and they're asking for several $100 million more yet again this year, which is statutory.
Yeah. Every year we're increasing the amount of dollars that we're putting into our education system, and every year we seem to go backwards on results. My fight has always been to let's start judging these people on their outcomes, not the amount of money that they spend. I mean, the way the education industrial complex in this state, the government schools define success as how much money they spend, and that's completely backwards. But there's a reason families choose the homeschooling route, and there's a reason that they choose the religious school route, and it's to get away from the government and the things that they're trying to indoctrinate. What's one of the worst things about this bill, in my mind, and one of the worst precedents, and a long line of worst precedents, is they're going to require all these homeschools and private schools to register with the government, to register with the state of Illinois, essentially be accredited. I know when I sent my kids in grade school to a school that basically my church started up. We did that for a reason. We did it to get away from that, and they didn't register and they didn't seek accreditation for a reason. They didn't want to be connected with that. Once you get accredited with the state of Illinois, you're tied to the school code, okay? And look at the things that they've tried to do with the school code just in the few years that we've been in the legislature. They tried this sex ed stuff. Thankfully, there was enough pushback that we had some local control on it. But the school code, guys, is subject to the will and the whim of the most liberal, out of control Marxist government in the country, with the legislators that we see in Illinois. So it's so dangerous to tie these folks to that code, because it could just be changed on a whim.
Right.
And, Section 905 on page 12 of the bill says, and I quote, "The State Board of Education may adopt any rules necessary to implement and administer this act," end quote. It's about as broad a grant of rulemaking authority, so it wouldn't even have to go through the legislature again if HB 2827 is passed into law.
Yep, dangerous, extremely dangerous, way broad overreach.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, last year we saw over 24 states across the nation that either created new or expanded their homeschool options. And Kirk, we see Illinois going the exact opposite. And this was even worse than that, to go the exact opposite, if it could get worse than that. But yet home education, private education continues to grow. It just seems counterintuitive to me that Illinois has this mindset, but maybe that's just the way it is. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, what's interesting to me is the timing of this bill. The fastest growing segment right now of homeschooling is in the minority communities, African Americans and Latinos. Now, all of a sudden, we want to increase regulation. Illinois has been a beacon of leadership with homeschooling for years. We've had people, especially back in the early 2000s and the 90s, from Iowa who jumped the fence and came over here to Illinois because our laws have been so good. We have been a very progressive state in a positive way, but this bill has taken us back 75 years, back to the 1950s. And I would have some understanding if statistically it was warranted. This bill basically assumes that homeschoolers are child abusers, and I can't say there's never been any such case of child abuse. But here's what's interesting. I've been at the helm of ICHE for 13 years, and to this point, any time there has been an abuse of parents who were quote unquote homeschooling, they were already in the DCFS system. This is not a homeschooling issue. This is a DCFS failure. Again, it's a very beleaguered system, of course, but we're treating the branch rather than the root, and the root cause is that our agencies are failing for whatever reason. It's not a homeschool issue. These people have been found to be have trouble when they were in the public schools. A lot of them pulled out to have public scrutiny, but they were already in the system. And having this declaration form, having this registration will not fix that problem. So again, for those who are in the minority community, I think this is really a slap in the face. They don't want their sons to become an inner city statistic. They don't want their daughter to be one of the 480 sexual assaults from student or staff on teachers in the CPS arena. They're trying to make the sacrifice, and rather than encouraging these minorities, rather than empowering them, we have certain representatives, certain legislators who want to take that power away. And I just don't understand. If this is really about the kids, which is being touted, we should be blessing homeschooling. We should be encouraging homeschooling, not trying to make extra levels of bureaucratic, I would use Representative Miller's word, but I won't here, but certain bureaucratic layers to make it more difficult.
Right, exactly. Senator Chesney, this seems to be like a solution that's in search of a problem. Is that a good characterization, or how would you sum it up?
Yeah, I mean, Democrats, obviously, they support government schools because they're big government and big spenders. And when you have high-performing groups outside of government, they want to regulate it to bring them more in conformity to the failed systems that they prop up and support. So you can take a look at the bill sponsor. You can take a look at the outside influences that have historically funded her campaign, and it all interconnects. And the truth is that government schools is a business. It's a big business. but it's a terrible, it's produced very bad outcomes. And so when you have competition in their eyes that are producing much better outcomes, they want to regulate that so they make their outcomes look less pronounced. And so, we really have to, and Representative Willhauer has tackled this issue for a long time. We really have to relook at how, we need to get to universal school choice, but we really have to look very, very deep into how we've addressed our public school problems. And this is really in search of a problem because they're trying to redirect the focus away from what they have done, which is they've failed the majority of the people they've sent to government schools.
Exactly. Gentlemen, as we get into the closing moments here of this, why don't we just go to Leader Willhauer, then Leader Miller, and then Kirk and Will, if you gentlemen want to have a closing thought here before we wrap up for the evening. And so let's go Miller, Willhauer, and then to Kirk and Will, if you guys want to wrap it up for the evening. Chris is froze up. Let's go to Leader Willhauer while we get Chris back online.
Well, they want to talk about school safety. It's not like government schools have the, have the market cornered on that. I just read that there's been 165, arrests or reports already just in 2025 of, sexual assaults in government schools. So, don't come at us with that stuff. So, obviously this is an uphill climb. The numbers aren't with us on this, and we're going to fight this, and hopefully the people can prevail on this. But at some point, even if state government does put their hands in this, we always believe that the best source of local control is right at home with the parents. And, we've got to do a better job of asserting local control. School boards don't have to do this stuff. If this stuff passes, I'm going to be advocating from the rooftops, do not comply. Do not comply, because it's not good for our students. And if your local government school is sticking their nose into homeschoolers and private schoolers in those districts, we're going to fight. We're going to fight like heck every day to fire everybody on those school boards, get rid of these superintendents. We got to take control of our local schools. We have the right, we have the authority, and it's in the best interest of the kids. So, stay tuned. Even if they think that they're going to push this nonsense through, this ain't over by a long shot.
Right. Exactly. Leader Miller, any closing thoughts? I don't think he's.
Agree with Blaine on this topic. They go ahead and ram basically on the moral side of this, the authority and the children to people what a woman is, the difference between male and female, and the list goes on. In the world, would you want to put your children under the clowns? And that's what they are. So we will not come.
Exactly. All right. Kirk, Will, any closing comments here this evening?
Well, my answer is very simple. As Reagan said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. But in this situation, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Homeschoolers, call your state legislators, except for the ones here on camera. They're leading the fight, so no need to call them, and file witness slips against HB 2827. Make your voice heard. It's been exciting to see. I think it's about 22,100 right now to 500. That's how little support this bill has among Illinois residents.
Right. And Senator Chesney, 30 seconds. Any thoughts before we close out? And I'll go to Director Mosley to wrap us up with the closing slide.
No, just appreciate our homeschoolers for showing up. We're on the right side of the issue. We got to keep government, out of our lives to the extent that we can. And this bill is simply set up to overregulate the good people in our country that want to be front and center on their children's education, and we can't let it happen.
Exactly. Thank you. And Director Mosley, any closing thoughts in our last slide for the evening?
No, we're going to bring it up. Here's our Substack where you can follow the Freedom Caucus. Here's the website where you can follow the ICHE, and just make sure you stay engaged. This is a fight that's going to go on probably until the bitter end. And so we hope you're with us. We're with you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining us tonight. And as always, we appreciate that you like, subscribe, and follow our content to help us overcome the algorithmic gods of the big tech overlords. And with that, good night, and we'll talk to you real soon.